What? Shifumi, Diana, you guys stop talking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can everybody sort of see my screen? Just type a affirmative yes in the chat below, please, if you can. Okay, awesome. Yeah, again, we'll probably give it like 1 or 2 more minutes, and then just sort of get started, because it is a full hour, but I think that it'll also go by really quickly for each other and also for me. So yeah, again, let's just give a few more minutes and then we'll get started. In the meantime, I'm gonna drink my water, I guess. How's everyone's Thursday? I feel like the week went by so quickly, which is, I feel like, a good thing, unless you have a lot of work that you need to get done before the work week is over, which is maybe not the best thing. Looking forward to the weekend? Yeah, so am I. I personally am also really looking forward to the weekend. Actually, one of my friends, Kim, she helped us make the PowerPoint template. It's really cute, right? Yeah, I love it. I love how just playful it is in general and colorful. And so hopefully I did her, credit by actually putting my content in there and that it doesn't just look nice. But yeah, maybe just 1 more minute and then we'll start. And yeah, I also agree. I think it's actually a little bit harder than I expected, just in terms of getting slides to look pretty. Because you have to edit the master template, and this is actually just on Google Slides, which I always find fascinating because my Google Slides usually always looks just the default. But yeah, for those of you that just joined, feel free to like introduce yourself below and just say hello. I really would hate to just be talking to myself the entire session. Thank you. Okay, awesome. 8:03, let's actually just get started. If there's any issue with how I'm sounding or you can't see something, just feel free to type. I mean, I'm looking at the chat anyway, so that sounds, we'll be good to go. So yeah, again, thank you all so much for showing up to my workshop before Hack the North officially kicks off. Since we do have an hour, let's just get started right away. So first, my name is Helen. I'm currently a product manager at Microsoft/GitHub. And yeah, that's actually accurate. I do work between the two. I'm also the co-founder at Collab, and you can find out what Collab is actually at the website, joincollab.io. If you want to get connected with me, you can see obviously in the screen there all the tags for all my handles: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc. I am at Donut on Clubhouse if you're also on Clubhouse, but that's sort of where it deviates. And also with us today, we do have Diana and Shifumi. They'll be my workshop helpers and just able to answer whatever questions and sort of help with whatever else. So in today's session, we're going to be chatting a bit about my experiences as an earth science student, the struggles of landing my first product internship and full-time job as someone non-technical or sort of non-traditional. After that, we'll switch a little bit more into tactical mode and brainstorm, talk through some tips about how to land your first internship or full-time as a product manager, as well as ultimately succeeding in the industry once you're there. Before we begin, though, I definitely want to set some guidelines for how we make the best out of our time together. First is that, please, I really would love for this to be a conversation. I'm just one person speaking, again, to a screen and silence. The Hack the North folks have really done a great job in getting everyone together, and I just know that every single one of you has something to teach. So let's just really connect and learn from another. I've actually started a LinkedIn and Twitter thread that Diana and Shifumi will be linking in the Hopin chat. So if you want to hop over to those threads and just comment, it might be a little bit easier for everybody to find each other afterwards outside of Hopin or outside of just Discord. But, along with the connection point, just sort of introduce yourselves in the chat, and please keep sharing your thoughts throughout the event, and also share your learnings here or online to friends. I'd love to see them. Also, as someone who did just come from sort of a non-traditional background, as a non-technical person, as a woman, first-gen immigrant, a lot of what I have to share maybe or like stories are sort of sensitive topics for many people. So I just want to call out for empathy, I guess, and ask folks to seek to understand me, but also one another. It's nothing that serious, but I just, again, want to make sure that this is sort of the space that we're creating. That being said, let's actually get started. So with my learnings and experiences. So I started off as a science and business student at the University of Waterloo. That's essentially like a science degree with a business minor. It's not even an option anymore because it's not that popular, but my major was in earth sciences. So most of my fourth year classes were around volcanology, hydrology, etc. So how many of us actually go to Waterloo or are at least familiar with what co-op is? If you're not from Waterloo, let us know where you're from in the Hopin chat. But essentially, for those that might not know, co-op is basically just internship placements. And my first two internship placements were as a business analyst at CIBC and Scotiabank. After that, though, is when I sort of transitioned into technology or into product management specifically. Has anyone also heard of Farmville? So I joined Zynga Toronto, where I worked on mobile games. So that was very consumer focused, B2C, very heavy UI, working closely with designers and developers. Specifically, I worked on a game called Word Streak with Friends. And so some of my folks on the screenshot are actually my coworkers. This for me was definitely a huge learning curve. Even though, I'm familiar with mobile games, I didn't really understand the product role. I didn't know anyone who was a product manager, didn't know really what product manager did, and didn't realize that we actually got to make decisions as product managers. When you're transitioning from roles where you're sort of given direction and instructions into this more vague space where you have to figure it all out, is sort of stressful. Also for me, I had only taken one CS course, and I also only took one CS course in university, and that was CS 100. I learned Excel, so having to dig through data and learn SQL on the fly was really difficult. However, it did provide me a really great experience that I ultimately took to Microsoft for my last 8-month internship. While I was there, I worked on the Microsoft Edge team, sort of doing technical evangelism, developer marketing, outreach, all under the program management role. Afterwards, though, after 8 months, I did decide to return, and I'm now a product manager on Azure DevOps/GitHub since the acquisition. So the product I work on now, Azure DevOps, is essentially a collaborative development tool. Basically, you can plan your work with your team. You can do continuous deployment, continuous integration, automated testing, essentially optimize your developer workflows. But obviously, as somebody who is not a developer, it's definitely not as intuitive as working on mobile games, especially, it's just not the most natural of things to pick up. And frankly, I still personally don't code now, even though I'm sure all of you at Hack the North probably have some sort of technical job, even as I'm doing it. Yeah, again, while not being technical isn't technically a requirement, it really is a benefit. However, either way, I'm sure at some point you guys will fail, or you guys might not think you know how to code enough or know how to be a good product manager. And that's sort of where the imposter syndrome can really kick in. So if imposter syndrome or just like general nervousness and work anxiety, or even feeling like, hey, I'm not really good enough to be here. If you've ever felt that way, definitely let me know in the chat and we can commiserate together. Yeah, imposter syndrome is absolutely a normal feeling and that everyone feels it. Also, I see that nobody has said that they feel that way. So wow, I feel so alone. Again, whether you're sort of a uni student looking to get into PM or explore the industry, or if you're already in the industry and trying to figure out what more best practices you could do, I do want to just sort of share the key learnings that I've had. So, firstly, for those of you that might be struggling to break into PM, just know that really there's a space for you. Honestly, there's a lot of hype around product management in particular, but once you explore more, you also sort of realize that tech is a huge space, right? There's a variety of roles that might be a good fit for you and still influence product. And that could be a variety of things. Maybe you want to do program management, maybe you want to do technical project management, operations management, communications management, community management. Essentially, there's a variety of things that after you look past just the product management designation, you might realize that there's other things that you're interested in, which is totally okay. But if you are really set on product in particular, you should also know that there's more to product than just within the B2C consumer space with, the cool flashy products and like the user interfaces. Like I said, I used to work on mobile games, right? So things obviously felt really straightforward and easy to understand. And I do think that when we consider product management, it's those products that are sort of highlighted today. But as of now, I work on SaaS products. So the product vision and like direction that I set have much more to do with like infrastructure design and optimizations that rather than necessarily like user interface design or just features in the most traditional sense of the word. At the same time, Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, all of these similar tools, they're hugely growing spaces and they definitely hire a lot of product managers. So essentially my point here is of all the possible places, I'm sure there is one place for you. You just might need to expand that traditional view of what a product manager works on. So this sort of also leads me to my second learning, which is don't give up. Obviously, very cliche, but I really like this comic by Shipping Tomorrow. You can find them on Twitter, and it says the truth behind PM resumes. And you obviously see this PM. Her resume reads capable product leader, blah blah blah, and she's sort of begging her developer to get things done. So I think oftentimes we realize that okay, yeah, Instagram, Facebook, that sort of only shows the highlight reels of someone else's life, but often we really do forget that LinkedIn or someone's resume is really the exact same thing. Like you can look at me and be like, okay, well, she's a product manager at Microsoft now and whatever other achievements I'm choosing to showcase. But again, what you don't really see is all of the struggles and rejections there as well. So in this portion, I'm just going to give a very candid and upfront breakdown of said rejections. So my rejections for me, Helen, technically began even before Waterloo. I don't know if many of you can, I guess, sympathize with this because, again, I feel like if you're showing up to Hack the North, it's probably because you're motivated individuals who are really high achieving, at least in my mind. But for me, before coming to Waterloo, I really wanted to be a nurse. But I got rejected to every single nursing program, and Waterloo was the only non-nursing program I applied to. You could ask, why did you apply to it? Did you know about co-op? Like, was it a good technical school that stood out? No. The real reason is because I actually really wanted to get my high school boyfriend back, and he decided to go to Waterloo. But anywho, I ended up coming to Waterloo because I had no other place to go. My grades were also so bad in high school that I had to go to summer school after grade 12 ended to meet the minimum average requirement to retain my Waterloo acceptance. For my program, that was actually 70%. So yeah, I went to summer school to hit that 70% before I could even go to Waterloo. So like I said then, earth science at Waterloo, my next biggest struggle was actually landing my co-op term. I did have a job in high school. I worked at Mantuwalk, but I really didn't do a great job in terms of translating those skills to my resume. And we'll be chatting a little bit more about how you can do that afterwards. I did somehow scrape by, though, landing the CIBC job about a month after everyone already started work that term. So far beyond continuous round for us who go to Waterloo. Scotiabank definitely came a little bit easier, which thank God. But Zynga, my break into product management, that was very, very, very hard. Yeah, that was really difficult. And that's sort of where I struggled the most. So first was about figuring out that product management was a thing at all, which I'm sure you all have if you're at this talk. And so that's sort of where that happened, is the term where I was applying for all of these PM internships. So first I had an interview with Riot Games. And in that interview, I just did terrible because I didn't even know what Agile meant. I really thought it was a piece of software. And when my interviewer was like, "Hey, what experience do you have with Agile?" I was like, "Oh, I'll really search it up and learn how to use that." Only to search it up after and realize, wow, that's not really what it meant at all. And during this entire time of just applying for internships and full time, if we look at the funnel, which is a PM's favorite F word, I really applied to over 500 jobs, and I wrote cover letters more or less individualized for each of them. So that's close to 500 cover letters. Have you all hit that number yet in your job search? Or what number have you hit? Definitely let me know. But for me, I was really, really keen. I just remember looking at my intern job portal one term, and I had done over 300 applications in just that 2-month period. And during that same period, I got 3 interviews out of 300, and I only got 1 offer. So yeah, the reality, unfortunately, is that failures will continue even after you're in the industry as a product manager. You'll probably mess up your work at some point. You might have some issues with your coworkers. You might get a call to diversity hire to your face like I was. But really, it's just about sort of, I guess, pushing through those struggles, getting back up, and then just continuing to push towards your goals. Because yeah, again, without failing, that sort of means you didn't even really try, and that is probably a little bit worse. And also to Sarah, I studied earth sciences at Water. No, maybe that's the norm now. And that does bring me to my last learning point, which is that, hey, you're here for a reason. And sort of knowing that you really, really do need to recognize your own value with whatever experiences and skills that you bring. This is really what I try to remind myself when I think about the person who called me a diversity hire, or anytime I feel a little bit, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I belong here. Things, again, really are not easy, and especially not easy the first time, because, again, if they were, everybody was here to choose to do them, right? So if you're interviewing, just remember that they reviewed your resume and they chose to dedicate the time to actually interview you. And if you're in the role, just remember that your employer, your manager, your founders, they took the time and energy and money to hire you. So I think if there was anything that I could tell myself just throughout all of this, is that, hey, don't undersell yourself, don't undersell your talents and your experiences. Let others do the underselling for you. And also just remember that things do get easier with time and repetition and effort. Okay, so at this point, I did want to go exactly into landing the product manager job, whether that's your full-time intern or your internship. Is everyone still with me so far? Can I continue? Okay, awesome. So I like to think of tips on landing the job as a product manager in sort of 4 separate sections. So again, considering the funnel in reverse order, we sort of have the interview stage, the application stage, resume writing, and then experience gathering that sort of permeates like through the entire thing, right? Because again, if you have the experience, you're going to write it on your resume, you're going to put it in your app, and you're probably going to talk about it during the interview. Um, and obviously, I sort of want to break this down and talk to each of them, but I also do want this to be like a discussion component. Have you all heard? Let's actually brainstorm together to see if you've heard of anything or if you've actually used something that was successful. So I think Shifumi and Diana are just sort of linking this Miro link now. And you can head over if you have another screen. I mean, I'm going to share my screen anyway, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, again, let's actually just quickly move on over to this one, and then you should Hi, I'm back. Wow, I can't believe my internet actually stopped working there. Okay, awesome. Wait, can everyone see my screen again? Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so basically, yeah, again, let's pick it up. So yeah, I created this board and, we'll send out the link. You should have the link. And you'll have access to it for the end of time, I guess. But essentially, feel free to share this, use this, and whatever. But I would love to use this time to really just sort of brainstorm all of these components, sort of go from there. Because again, I'm just one person. I haven't tried it all. So I do think that let's just like collectively come up with some good things. I think somebody asked about cracking the PM interview previously. Oh yeah, and if it's not clear, definitely just post the things that you tried for each section. Just post it in the comments below. Um, so I think I'm back again. Hello, am I back now? Wait, am I actually back now? Okay. Oh my gosh, please, fingers crossed that my internet does not continue to crap out on me. Okay, wait, can folks see the screen again? My God. Okay, all right. Yeah, now anytime that somebody doesn't post anything, I'm truly concerned because then I don't know if my internet stopped working, which means all of you are now forced to comment. But basically, yeah, I just wanted to go through each step of this funnel and sort of give our own tips. I mean, sort of brainstorm, share what you've done previously, and then sort of go from there. Does that sound okay? Wait, am I still on the call? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, interview stage. I think somebody asked about cracking the PM interview previously, and I really, really highly recommend that along with any other sort of prep books that you could do. What are some other books that folks have read? I personally, actually, the first time that I landed a PM interview, I only read this book and sort of just memorized it. At least that's what it felt like, front to back, because it was just extremely helpful. I didn't even really do any mock interviews, but that definitely is something that I recommend everyone do. Mock interviews, sort of reach out to your friends, other students, or just people in industry, even recruiters, and just see if they're willing to sort of sit through some mock interviews with you, because sometimes you could in practice have good answers, but then, or I mean in theory have good answers, but once that doesn't always come across in the exact same way that is the most effective within an interview. So definitely practice out loud. Decode and conquer, I guess I'm going to put it here because some folks have mentioned it. I personally, again, have only read Cracking the PM interview and have not done mock interviews, but here I am as well. Did I read every chapter? I actually did read every chapter. Again, when I was prepping for product interviews, I didn't know anybody else who was a product manager. Being in earth science, and I think this is something that you all might not have to go through because you're, again, at a hackathon, sort of, you're within a technical environment already. But yeah, I didn't really have anybody that I knew that was in tech. I was just trying to figure it out completely. And cracking the PM interview really helped me along like each of those stages. What are some other things that folks have done? I think, yes, again, with the books, books are great and all, and they'll like tell you frameworks and whatever else, but anybody can memorize a framework, right? Ultimately, what's important is that you sort of translate how you are, your personality, into any of your answers, because at the end of the day, they're going to be working with you and not a memorized, I guess, piece of like an answer. Another interesting thing is that I've definitely done interviews for Microsoft and a lot of PM interviews, and it is sort of obvious whenever anybody is just sort of framing their answers exactly like the books. So just something to note, because yes, while they do work, it's good to just sort of add some of like yourself in there, I guess. YouTube videos is also another one that's good. So yeah, being yourself and like going off script, I guess, is sort of what I meant to say there. And then I also wanted to mention just transferable skills. So I think for somebody who's like non-technical, if there's anybody listening that considers themselves non-technical, one thing that I really like to say is that, hey, I'm really good at translating concepts between like a variety of audiences, right? So even though I'm not technical myself, being able to actually convey that to your customers who may or may not be technical is very key. Or if you're sort of coming from like a software background, being able to say that, hey, because I have this technical background, I really have a solid grasp of just resourcing and timelines. And that is also very key in the PM role. So those are just some that I can think about for the interview stage. Feel free to like continue posting if there's any else, and like I'll just add it. But then moving on to sort of applications. I just had a default one here, which is just apply, because I'm sure we all sort of understand, hey, you go to this form that you like and it says, hey, you need X years of experience, or you need to know how to code. I remember when I applied for Microsoft, there was this one liner and it was like in bold, hey, you need to know how to code to, I guess, be part of this product management job, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember almost not applying, and I'm obviously really grateful I did, because that has just changed the course of my career, right? And so ultimately, obviously, be realistic. You're not, I mean, maybe you're not gonna land like a chief product officer role right off the bat, but definitely apply. And again, don't undersell yourself. Sort of let someone else do that. What else? Oh yeah, info sessions. So Sarah, about my experience with Microsoft and how I got the interview, I luckily was able to go through the Waterloo co-op process. And so one of the things, and the reason why I wrote the info sessions here, was because, so I'm not really sure if it's the same with Waterloo works now, but previously there are these targeted programs that all of these job listings have, and then you apply and then you go through interview process there. But because I wasn't within the targeted program, I really relied on info sessions and just sort of making connections with the recruiters that showed up. So anytime there was an info session, again, in person, I would always go early and I would sit at the very front. One, because when there's free food, you get access to it. But two, because after the session is over, you can actually go up and chat with the recruiters yourself, right? And being able to actually have that face-to-face interaction before they're flooded with, a myriad of like other students would be really useful, because they do remember you when you apply. So the other point here is actually just cold emails. Cold or warm, honestly. So again, if you meet somebody at an info session or a recruiting session or a networking session, send them a message, right? Sort of try to stand out any way that you can. Another thing that I did though was I actually used LinkedIn to just cold email recruiters. Right now, if you go on LinkedIn jobs, you have sort of the internship section as well. And when you're there, you can actually see who posts those job postings, right? So when that happens, feel free to just message the people that did. Again, it's sort of in your recruiter's best interest to make sure that you're prepared and ready for the role, and that you sort of land the role, right? So definitely reach out to them because it's really useful. Kristen, you asked, what did they ask you coding questions since they required coding experience? Microsoft didn't, but actually another product role that I applied to outside of the portal did. And so again, when they asked me that, I can't lie. I guess once you're in the interview, it's not like you have any way to just sort of brush past the fact that you don't know how to code. And so when they did, I actually did just tell them what I said during the interview tip section, which is, hey, I don't know how to do that, but here are the things that I am good at. And here is why I do believe that makes me a good product manager. So again, if you're, there's so many transferable skills out there, right? Like if you're in marketing or if you're good with like sales, then maybe the skills that you want to transfer over are like good negotiation skills or good written communication skills. All of those things are sort of key as well. What else? What else have folks done in here? Apply. Oh, and then, yeah, referrals. So I personally feel like, about referrals, as in I'm always happy to give a referral. Obviously, if I like think that they're a good fit and stuff, but it does sort of suck sometimes that, hey, it really is about all like the people that which is why, again, it is very critical to go meet people and sort of network and connect with them, whether it's through like Hack the North or just whatever other sessions, and just be friendly and be open. But otherwise, referrals really do give you a leg up. Referrals and I think cold, warm emails to the recruiter are sort of on par. If you're at a large company, maybe an email directly to a recruiter is actually going to be more beneficial than a referral, because your referral might just get sort of lost in the system. But of course, when you're at a smaller company, I think having someone who's able to vouch for you is obviously going to be very helpful. Okay, so let's move on to the resume writing section. I also feel like, again, we've probably all done a bunch of research on like, oh, what makes a good resume, et cetera, et cetera. And so like the first thing that I wanted to share here was just, okay, quantify things, right? So sort of really put things in numbers, put things in impact, because at the end of the day, you can't really spend an entire interview's time worth to explain exactly what you did. But what everyone does understand are numbers and the impact of your work. So if you could say, hey, I did this thing which reduced developer time, or it sort of helped us save X dollars, that's going to be numbers that everybody understands. What other tips have you all done before in terms of resume? Maybe getting it reviewed. Wait, Ali, what exactly is star again? I know I've heard it, but I can't remember. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll just wait for you to tell me. But basically, yeah, again, you have a resume, get it reviewed by your friends, get it reviewed by recruiters even, might be really helpful. Oh, another one is probably just seeing resumes that work. So if you have a friend or somebody that that's sort of been successful with their resume, take a look to see how they've sort of framed it, and go from there. Sort of, yeah, leverage whatever you can learn from any of these successful, I guess, hallmarks of resumes. What else? Oh yeah, keyword scanning. So I'm not really sure exactly what tools there are out there to basically I think the goal here is to make sure that you have the key list of keywords, that you can make it past the AI as they're sort of browsing. I think that, again, if you are able to DM a recruiter and stuff like that, it's a little bit less important, but ultimately, formatting, like Freya is saying, all of these things are just really important to get your resume past just the resume hand in stage. So then the last part that I wanted to touch upon is obviously the experience gathering section, um, which is again sort of the section that permeates through to every single other section. If you have good experience, obviously, then you will have a good resume. You'll be able to write that on your application, and then you'll also be able to talk about it in the interviews. And obviously, being able to sort of speak from the heart is going to be much easier than anything else. So that's why I really like to focus and emphasize on experience gathering. The other thing is that, obviously experience gathering is the harder piece to do, right? If we go online and sort of search, oh, how do I land a job? Obviously we'll come up with a huge list of like what to optimize for. Hey, here are the things you can tweak in your resume. Here are like how you can reword things. But those are just sort of the easier things to do. Again, it really comes back to gathering the practical experience. And there are a lot of things you could do. So as an individual, right, as a product manager, you write a lot. So I would really recommend, writing a spec. So a spec, for some of you that might not know, is sort of like a proposal or like a technical proposal document, functional requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Go take a search and sort of come up with an idea yourself and then write a spec for it. That might give you some more understanding into what the role does, which ultimately will help you. The other thing is probably just like blog. Or just write some articles, get published in some way, whether it's to your own personal blog or maybe like a Medium publication or something like that. I do think that that really will help. Again, product management is very heavy on the written communication skills. So definitely do that. What else can you do as an individual? Oh, yeah. I don't know if this is individual or group, but like case competitions and Hack the North and other hackathons. I mean, obviously, it's sort of actually team now that I put it in, but you do have to take the first steps in like even recognizing that it's what you have to do. But again, if you only have to work as an individual, try out like no code tools as well. I'm very much on the no code train. So tools like Bubble or like Webflow, Glide, like they will help you create apps even if you don't know how to code. And again, being able to sort of show that you have the motivation to actually execute something and to actually do it is a big deal. At the same time, though, obviously teamwork is sort of, I mean, not teamwork, but product management really is a collaborative role, especially in more junior roles, APM roles. Recruiters really just want to see that you can work together as a team and actually execute. So actual like sort of practical experience. I know that when we read, oh, what is product management, blah, 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 it really highlights and focuses on like product vision and like long-term strategy and stuff like that. But again, that's sort of things you gain once you're inside the role and inside the space. So how do you develop that before you're sort of in it? How do you land actually that first internship or whatever else? First of all, just a caveat is that I'm obviously extremely passionate about this space of like sort of creating that cross-discipline experience for product managers, which is why, I run this entire program around it where we group aspiring product managers, designers, and developers together and sort of take them from ideation to product launch. Also, as part of that, we have like an entire newsletter. But again, this sort of facilitation is something you can set up yourself. So Hack the North is a really, really great example of how, right? I mean, over this weekend, go find other developers, go find UX researchers, designers, and just hold each other accountable to getting something done. I think that accountability really is key. And also having the space where you're able to be creating something and just like flexing those creative skills and collaboration skills. Now, after Hack the North, try and see if you can take it to a greater scale over a longer period of time than just a weekend, right? Try to see if you can prove that, hey, what you've worked on, it's actually a really great idea for these key reasons. Hey, there's a market for it. Just sort of extend it past just your hacking weekend. Because again, the experiences of being able to explain on your resume, in your application, or in an interview on how you aligned a team to a vision, how you worked with other disciplines to ship things, that's going to instill a lot of confidence in yourself that others can see and recognize. So again, I think this is a really great map. Wait, Extend longer. So again, it is going to stay up. Oh, look, it sort of looks like an interesting bug. Yeah, so you'll have access to this whenever, wherever. I'm also happy to share my resume and whatever else. But like Ali said, perfect resume really doesn't exist. So I definitely agree with that. It's absolutely so dependent on the role, so dependent on the product. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it really is about what it is that you're looking to get. What kind of product experience are you even trying to reach for? And how do you explain the experiences that you've already had? So, yeah, I agree. Okay, so that was sort of about getting the role. And now that you're in it, what are some of the things that I think you should pay attention to as a product manager? So again, there's a bunch of things you can do to prep for your first role. A good search term might be like 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plan. You'll definitely get a lot of results that way. And I also know that if you're here, you're probably pretty keen on doing your research and figuring that out. I did, though, want to just share 3 things that I felt like I learned. And the first thing is really just being able to make data-driven decisions. This is especially helpful if you're joining as an intern or a more junior role. As a product manager, you really need to be able to lead by influence, right? But again, sometimes if you're an intern, you're new to the company, it's hard to stay confident and sort of committed to those ideas and proposals. But if you back your data or if you back your decisions up with data, it's absolutely easier to sort of believe and stay confident in what you're recommending. So just try to capture all of the qualitative and like quantitative data that you can use and use them as facts. Because if you can show that, hey, we should do this one feature because the data points us in this direction, and then bam, show them the numbers, you will feel a lot more confident in yourself, which is always good when you're sort of leading the product team. Again, as a product manager, you could build anything. Everything is possible. It's just a matter of time. So another key skill to have here is just being able to like quantify and justify why you're making a certain proposal or why you're making a certain recommendation. So if you can say, hey, by doing this work, we could actually move the needle in this way and see this type of impact, that's sort of the exact thing that your managers and team members are looking for. The second tip is just building trust with your team. If you're more on the non-technical side like me, definitely spend time in building rapport with your dev team. Even if you are coming from a technical background, if you're a sort of a software student transitioning into PM, still do the same thing because you'll realize that there's a lot of nuances with each product that only your dev team will know. So yeah, set up recurring one-on-ones because again, if you're on good terms with them, you'll be more than willing to ask them questions and sort of get the things you need answered up front. Second is that you should really also stay close with your customer facing teams. So maybe that's customer support or marketing or sales. Those will be the folks that are sort of your initial layer of triage, and they'll really understand customer pain that they can then share with you. Not the pain, but the insights. After you've built and sort of established this rapport with your team, though, and after you've built that entire trust, that's when you'll get to have all the disagreements that you need, right? All under the guise of brainstorming. So if you are able to actually align your team to a vision, to the same goal, then everything that your team talks about and matches this goal is just sort of brainstorming as to how to resolve it. And so, yeah, then they can actually safely disagree. But ultimately, again, product manager really is a collaborative role. So teamwork does fully make the dream work here as a PM. The last tip I have to share is really just to think big picture. I think when you start, definitely figure out what your personal goals are, then compare them to your features goals, your products goals, your team's goals, your organization's goals. Finding a mentor is also honestly super helpful. Again, taking us back to sort of the cold email outreach on LinkedIn, do that. a mentor doesn't have to be somebody that you actually work with. It can be someone outside your team, someone completely random, someone that you meet on LinkedIn. Because having that person to just sort of bounce ideas off of is just like finding a community, right? You sort of realize that, oh, whatever you've gone through or whatever you're going through, somebody has gone through that before and has learned something, and they're here to share their learnings with you. And that's actually also why I really suggest connecting with one another here at Hack the North, whether it's in Hopin or Discord. Also, I think the last component that I find really important is that, and many of you actually might disagree, so I'm curious to see what you all think. But yeah, I really believe that ultimately your job is just sort of a part of your life. You get to decide how big of a part it plays, obviously, but I do think that sometimes we forget about this. And I put this here because I've witnessed it so many times in myself, in my friends, in my peers. Um, Obviously, when you fail, it's going to be tough. And you are going to fail at some point or another, right? And it will hurt a little bit less when you really put things into perspective. Because yeah, you're not really your job. You can be an aspiring or a current product manager, but ultimately, it's really you as a person that's motivated, skilled, a leader, and whatever those skills you have as a person is what enables you to be a product manager, or honestly, whatever role it is that you choose to be in. So yeah, again, just try to think big picture whenever you can and step back, and sort of consider it from a high up view rather than very lost in the weeds. Yeah, do you guys agree with that actually? Do you think that, like, or what component would you say, or what percentage would your job make up your life? It's a topic that I always love discussing, because obviously everyone has a different question or like answer. Yes, and beyond, sorry. Hope that's okay. But yeah, ultimately, I did sort of just want to end my talking component here because I feel like I've talked a lot. But yeah, I do want to end again with some takeaways that I hope you all leave with. First, well, actually, before any of these takeaways, it's also just that, I think that no matter what, like the resources are out there and you guys can find whatever answers you want from a variety of spaces, right? And I'm sure that if you tuned into this talk, you've probably also considered, hey, what is product management? How do I have a good resume? Like, how do I break into the industry and stuff like that? And so that's why I just sort of wanted to give a little bit more insights that I've had personally that I don't see being talked about as much. So yeah, anywho, the first thing I wanted to share and for you all to take away is that, hey, failure is normal. Y'all take it from me. I literally wrote hundreds of cover letters for no response. They didn't even reject me. There was just no response. And if you failed, obviously know that you're not alone. Regardless of what you're aiming to do, I doubt you're alone, right? So if you just landed in the role, maybe you're trying to figure out your first 30 days, or if you're just sort of in the learning stages, there's a community of folks out there wanting to learn, struggling with you, wanting to teach, and you can do it all together. And then lastly, it's really just that, hey, you're pretty capable. You've probably are because you've made it to Hack the North. And if you haven't, and maybe if you're watching this on YouTube, you're still taking the time to be here, right? So you're really choosing to sit through these workshops and sort of soak up all of the learning, and really, really, really that means a lot. That means something. So yeah, ultimately, I hope all of these tips, stories, and whatnot helped in some way, in addition to my poor internet connection. And I also hope that it did provide value. So at this point, I would love to sort of just open the floor up to questions, or if any of you have anything that you want to share, your own story with each other, let's just sort of chat. So yeah, feel free to chat, I guess, to type it in the chat, and then I'll just sort of read them out and answer them. So yeah, Carter, when you say failure, do you mean self-diagnosed or one which was brought up by the team? I sort of mean both, because I think oftentimes we're obviously the hardest on ourselves, right? And so of course there are things that you might notice. At that point, I would actually really recommend talking to an external person, whether it's someone on the team that you trust or your manager who might have been there. They can actually help you reflect a little bit to see if it was just all in your head, or if there was actually something that you could have done better. But yeah, I definitely mean both. What was the biggest hurdle entering the tech industry coming from a non-traditional background. I think for me, it was just getting over the hump of not knowing how to code and not being technical. I've definitely had interviews where, I would make it all the way to the final stage. I'd go on site and people would tell me that, hey, you're not technical enough. I don't think that you'll do well here. And of course, that obviously sucks in the moment, right? But I also do think that in the grand scheme of things, you want obviously to find a place that you belong, and is good for you, but you also need to make sure that it actually is good for you and that it's actually a good fit. Again, none of us like being rejected, but I do think it's about just figuring out, is if they don't think that you're technical enough, would you really be that happy there, in terms of like figuring it out in terms of stress, or is there going to be something that comes down the line that you're better suited for? So that's how I've thought about it. How do I find a business-oriented product manager role in Azure? I mean, I feel like that's very specific, but since you'll be joining the company or whoever, if you're already within the organization, honestly, just translate whatever advice I had about the cold emails to recruiters, translate that to people that you find within your same company. I don't think that we leverage that nearly enough, right? But I've actually really started to do so, which is I'll just find interesting people and I'll just drop a very nicely crafted and also professional email and ask them if they're down to chat for like 30 minutes so that I could learn from them. Again, try to leverage whatever network that you have. What about product manager or management surprised me the most since I started my career? I think it's probably, again, just the fact that we get to make decisions. I think when you're coming from outside the industry, you don't realize all of the influence that a product manager has. And I guess, especially as an intern, it's figuring out that, wait, there's no project plan, right? You define the project plan. You sort of figure out what to do, and then you tell other people what you figured out, and you convince them to do it. And so that's definitely the most fun as well as surprising part of PM. What did I major in, and am I currently employed? If yes, where and what got me there? Sahil, my friend, I feel like you missed the entire presentation. Just kidding. So I majored in earth sciences at the University of Waterloo. I am currently employed. I work at Microsoft/GitHub as a product manager. And what got me there was a variety of failures, and struggles, and continuing to try, I guess. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, science, I think, I mean, again, there's so many transferable skills that you can make regardless of the background that you're coming in from. Do I have any tips on applying to Microsoft in particular? So there is in the cracking the PM interview section a chapter about Microsoft. I do think that that's relatively realistic, but I also do want to call out that at Microsoft, and we actually have a bunch of Microsoft mentors here, so definitely go to their channel and just ask them questions there. But yeah, at Microsoft, there's sort of two types of roles. There's program management and there's product management. You don't really know exactly the role that you're going into, I suppose. So it's really just a matter of like chatting with the recruiters and chatting with the team when you're interviewing. Otherwise, tips, I would just say, hey, try to get a referral if you can. Try to leverage university recruiting, because coming in as an intern or just coming in as a new grad is much easier than with an industry. Did I have prior experiences with technical writing? I did not. And I actually struggle with that a lot right now because the products that I work on are so highly technical. I think, though, at the same time, it's really about once you get into the role, some of these things are things that you understand once you're already there. So it's definitely don't let things like that sort of be a barrier for you, I guess, is what I mean. Does Microsoft have any support for Asian females, and have you felt like you're the only female in the room? I do think that they have really good support. I actually love working at Microsoft. Great, yeah, they're really great. They're really supportive, and I really like Satya. but I definitely have felt like the only female in the room before. I think it's just a matter of sort of plugging in where you can, finding the communities where you can, and ultimately, deciding what's best for yourself, right? Because yes, you pick the company, and like, sure, we're all lucky to be employed and stuff, but you also have to consider that they're lucky to have us, right? Because all of us, whether you're in the role right now or maybe you're out, and not yet in, it's just about recognizing, yeah, there's, we are really solid talent, and we are a benefit to the company, and sort of just making those decisions based on remembering that. Any advice for getting started, even if you're not too sure of your interests or skills? Any advice would be to just get started. So I'm not sure if you're getting started in product management or like tech in general, but I do think that, product management really is such a broad sort of space that you could do literally anything you want. So I would really take a step back and see what are the things you like, right? If you're with friends, what are the things that, what's sort of the role that you play in your friend group? Or, are you technically inclined? Do you want to work on something where you're working closely with designers? Or do you not want to chat with customers much? And that's going to help you frame exactly where you're going to apply. And it's also going to help you frame your resume. Um, So Kevin's question, hey Helen, thanks for being so honest with your journey to your career path. I was wondering the differences between product, project, and program manager. I have been avidly learning about data tools, so I was wondering which of these roles would be more related to that skill set. I think ultimately, yeah, having data skills is so critical and is so important. So a little bit of a difference, and I'll like explain now between all the P's. First, it's really dependent on the company you go to as well. So when you apply and, after you're interviewing or talking to recruiters, just ask them to really clarify what the roles and responsibilities they think are, right? That's especially the case when you're interviewing with somebody on the actual team, because they'll be able to break it down for you the best. However, okay, so project, they're more sort of like the scrum master, right? So somebody who's sort of figuring out timelines, figuring out how each team fits in with each other, and sort of the execution stages. Hey, are we going to fit these deadlines? Are we going to hit that? So that's sort of project management. Product management is somebody who's very, very focused on the product creation and ultimately the what and the why. Why are we creating this thing? What is it for? Like, who are our customers? What's the impact here? I would say that product management, you will see roles as product managers or associate product managers. That's definitely where you're working the most closely with your engineering counterparts with design. And I think that, yeah, so that's sort of product. I definitely think that in terms of data tools, that's where your skills will be leveraged the most. And then program manager is sort of in between. And again, this goes back to, it really depends on what team you're in, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, program is sort of a mix of both product and project. And it really is just like, hey, you have to go and figure it out. Again, PM is it's such a vague term that there's just no one answer, just like there's no one fit or one mold for any type of product manager. So if I'm interested in being a PM, anything I could do in the team to help me bridge the gap or get a taste? Oh, actually, I really like this question. I actually wrote an entire article about just how to transition once you're already in the team. But what I would suggest, and what I have actually seen, is people going to their managers and asking them, hey, I sort of want to separate my responsibilities for the day. So if you could actually do, 80% or 70% software development and do the remaining, some of the PM tasks that you can start picking up, sort of shadowing some PMs. I've definitely seen friends as well as coworkers do that. So you should try and like just give that a try. Another way is maybe sort of taking more of a leadership role in some of the projects that you're running, right? So being able to really effectively communicate that in a written way, that's sort of some of the transferable skills once you're already on the team. Do I have any tips on summer high school internships or any ways I can gather experience? So I'm gonna just answer this one. And then I think we'll also just move over to Discord because our time is almost up. So tips, yeah, like I said, check out the link that we sent previously with the entire map, but just try to get whatever practical hands-on experience you can building products, right? Find, go to hackathons like this, build out side projects over time, be able explicitly to explain why you built those side projects. And that's how, a big reason of why PM differs from like development is that you need to explain the what and the why, right? It's not about the how, it's not about what you like, the technicalities of what you built, but it's more about, hey, it made business sense, right? Like you actually did the user research, the market research to understand why you spent the time. And it's details like that that you want to be able to showcase on any PM resume. Okay, ultimately, and fine, lastly, Namra, I personally don't think certifications help, but I'm also happy to explain a little bit more in Discord. Okay, awesome. So yeah, 9 p.m. I'm a huge sticker for time as well. But thank you all so much for joining me. Hopefully you chat with me, Shifumi, or Diana on Discord. Thanks again, Diana and Shifumi as well. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this sort of inspired something new or might have been a little different from what you expect. But yeah, I'm glad that you all joined me and I'm happy to be here. But yeah, hopefully see you all in Discord. Don't forget to connect with one another on like LinkedIn or Twitter or even just here. Yeah. And oh yeah, and have a great rest of the hackathon. There's a bunch of really cool workshops upcoming, I'm sure. Oh, and thanks for bearing with me as my internet sucked. Thank you, Carter. Yes, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and happy. Hope anyone else watching this not on Hopin is feeling the same way too. But yeah, have a great day. Okay, I feel like now it's time for me to drop too. Okay, bye.